Welcome to today's webinar, Introduction to Text-Based Coding in the Language of CSS. This webinar is part of the Introduction to Text-Based Coding series and can be viewed in sequential order following the HTML and JavaScript webinars. My name is Danielle, and I'm excited to be discussing CSS with you today. Don't forget, if you want to see more of this content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our MindFuel channel. In today's video, we will continue on and cover some beginning elements of the text-based language of CSS. We will build off the quick preview that was provided in the previous video in this series, where we added some color, fonts, and background design. We will dig deeper into the steps necessary for changing colors, adding different layout features, styling the page with different font choices, and how to use style to create a consistent design. Finally, I will wrap up this introduction series by highlighting some of the amazing things we have done with text-based coding. As a reminder, you'll want to have our free open editor ready to practice step-by-step adding in the CSS code. You can access the editor at codeGOAT.wonderville.org. Here we are in our code.wonderville.org. This video can be used to continue to add to your project of the STEM page started in the Introduction to HTML and JavaScript webinars, or you can start with example code that I am using. In the editor, you can access this example code by clicking the menu button and then selecting the Click for Example Code button. If you saved code from the HTML and JavaScript webinar and want to build upon your own personal STEM topic page, you can just copy and paste it into the code editor to continue to add to it. So let's get started with a little bit of background information on the language CSS. We saw in an earlier webinar that HTML can be used to provide basic styling to our page, such as bold text or blank lines. Coders soon wanted more style options on their websites, and like JavaScript, CSS came an add-on to HTML. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, where cascading describes the scheme, where style information flows from an overall style sheet file down to different web pages where any part of the style can be overridden, and then down to each tag in our HTML where styles can be overridden again. This new language was used to specify colors for text and backgrounds, different text fonts, centering and alignment, margins and borders, and many other style choices and different special effects, such as reacting to the mouse or the size of the screen. CSS code can be added in several different ways. A few examples where we can put CSS are in a separate file, so the same code can be used on many pages, giving a website a consistent look, in the HTML style tags in the head section for adding CSS code that applies to the entire page, and inside most tags with a style attribute, which gives CSS code for the tag only. So in summary, CSS is designed to keep us organized and consistent in style, while we add variety and fun to websites and apps. So that is just what we're going to do next. Start to add some design into our STEM project page. One of the best ways to be creative with your display is to add color. A special note, most coding languages use American spelling. So I just find it easier to stick with American spelling when coding and even writing about coding. Avoiding bugs is tough enough, and switching back and forth between British and American English is an extra complication. So I've decided to be consistent with the spelling used by the majority of coders worldwide, and that is with American English. So now would be a good time to make sure your code editor is ready to go Either copy and paste your code from the last webinar or use the example code you can get through the menu button. Just a heads up, if you use the menu button example code, this code does not have the JavaScript we added in the last webinar, as we wanted to provide easier code to follow for this webinar. Okay, let's start with the body tag in our HTML code and add a style attribute. Its value, highlighted with yellow, is CSS Code. The CSS consists of a property, which is color, a colon, and a value, in this case, red. Let's run this code and see what it does. So in the editor, I'm just going to find my HTML body code and then add my CSS style attribute to it. Now that the code's in, let's click run and see how it changes my page. You should see that all of the text on the page turned red. Pretty easy, huh? Let's add some more CSS color and see what else we can do. Okay, so now I'm going to declare a background color in addition to the text color I just did. I must use a semicolon to separate the two statements, and each statement consists of a property and its value separated by a colon. Spaces, new lines, and a final semicolon are all optional for the coding syntax. So in that same HTML body code, I'm just going to add in this background color code. So let's pop over to our editor, and you can probably guess what this code will do, but let's run it to see the magic happen. And there you go. The background color is now yellow. Did you know that CSS includes more than 100 color names, including magenta, coral, and sky blue? Give it a try. Change up your code with your favorite colors to personalize your page even more. I'm going to try sky blue and magenta as my background and style fonts. Have some fun picking colors that work for you and really make this page your own. Before we move on to other CSS features, I want to mention another fun thing you can do with the background. Here's a hint. You saw it in our last webinar when I did a sneak peek of CSS at the end. That's right. I'm talking about how to make the background a rainbow of colors. So to dig a little deeper into what that code actually is, all you have to do is replace background color with the property of background image. For the value, I use the linear gradient function. This tells the computer that I now want the background to have a gradient of colors. And then finally, you code in the colors of the rainbow of your choice. Or if you don't want a rainbow, but want a bunch of different colors, go ahead, change up the colors you code. Let's see how this looks in our editor. I'm going to stick with my rainbow colors and add the code now. I'm going to click run, and wow, look how magical it looks. I love it. It's amazing what a little bit of color can do. Now that I'm really getting pumped with my STEM page design, I want to see what more we can do to bring even more life to this page. So that brings us to layouts. We have seen that HTML provides tags for basic layout, such as headings, paragraphs, and divider lines. We have also seen the div tag, which we can use to divide and organize our page any way we like. But now, CSS starts with these basics and adds many other ways of moving things around, so the page looks exactly the way we want it. Let's try some changes to our STEM page's title, gravity in my case. It is between the H1 start and end tags, meaning this text will be big and bold. But besides being the style that is automatically associated with heading 1, I would like it to be centered on the page. For this, I will add a style attribute to the start tag. In coding, I need to really be specific, So I will label text align because it's the property and center because it's the value. And the computer should now know my alignment choices. I'm going to give this a go in my editor and let's see how it turns out. So before I add my code for the alignment, I'm just going to take out that gradient background and create my page a little bit more plain so we can see the changes that are happening for the rest of the webinar. And then I'm just going to add the code into my H1 tag and press run. And voila, my heading is now centered. I can also add this same attribute to other tag types. For example, in the H2 tag, I have added this property, but changed the value to right. Now I will let you guess what this will do. And as you can see in the highlighted code on the slide, I have done this in the first paragraph start tag as well. This time I am using justify for the value. This tells the browser to add extra space between words in order to get nice straight edges on both the left and right margins, which gives a professional look to the blocks of text. These are just a couple of ways to adjust the alignment on your page. So let's now go into our editor and add them in. So I'm just going to add that highlighted code from the slide into my heading 2 and my paragraph. Give it a try on your page too, and feel free to change up the value choices of center, right, justify, etc. to whatever your heart desires your alignment to go. I'm going to click run, and now you can see that my Isaac Newton second heading is all the way to the right, and that all my paragraphs are now justified and equally spaced from both sides of the margin. Once you have designed your page to how you like it, let's move on to some other layout coding. Okay, now, if you want complete control of where elements are placed on the page, there are a number of other styles that can be used alone or together. For instance, we can move the dog avatar, as we did in the previous webinar, by adding the following code that is highlighted to its start tag. The first statement, position relative, declares that you want to move the image relative to where it normally is. The second statement declares that we want to add 40 pixels of space on its left side, which actually moves it to the right. To provide a little background information, a pixel was originally defined as the smallest dot that can be drawn by the computer on a monitor. This is no longer absolutely true, as the latest technology stretches the usefulness of this definition. But in general, we can still use pixel, abbreviated px, as a unit of measurement that works with any display, from a phone to a TV to a jumbo video screen. CSS also accepts other units, such as mm for millimeters, but dealing with different units on different screens can be complicated. So let's keep it simple and stick with pixels for now. One way to get a sense of size, remember that typical text is about 10 pixels high. The best way is to try different numbers and run the code to see what comes up. I'm going to hop over to my editor now to give this a try. Okay, so I'm adding in the code and going to see how it changes my page. Notice where the dog is right now. Once I click run, you can see that it's moved over to the right. You can also try the code with right, top, and bottom. Play around with some different options here until you have placed the avatar exactly where you want it. Another great way to spice up your page is to add borders to separate and highlight important text. Let's add a couple of properties to a tag. I'm going to keep working with my H2 tag section, but you can add this to an H1 heading, a paragraph, an image, or div tag too. So let's break down the highlighted code here. The border property draws a line around the page element and takes 3 values: the width of the line, the style, such as dotted, dashed, solid, or double, and its color. I have specified a 3 pixel wide continuous solid red line. Then you have the border radius property. It is used to round the corners. You can give this a try with different values until you see how this works and what you like as the result. So let's pop over to our editor again and give this a go. Feel free to add a border around any section you want. I'm going to stick with H2 like I said and add that red border. Let's click run, and there you have it, perfection. My heading 2, Isaac Newton, is now surrounded by a red solid border line with rounded edges. So now I like the look of the border, but I wish there was a little empty space on both sides of it. There are two properties that I can use. The first one is margin. It adds space around the outside of the border. And the second is padding, which adds space on the inside. Here on the slide, you can see the highlighted code for margin and padding that we'll need to add. Now going into our editor, the code we're going to use is going to go wherever you had decided to add that border code. In my case, in H2. You have the flexibility here to change the number of pixels to your liking and run the code to see how it changes the margin and padding. The pixels I chose look great to me, and I'm so happy with how my STEM topic page is coming together, and I hope you are too. Now, a really fun way to add more style to your page is with some cool looking text. CSS gives us the ability to specify a simple text style or font for easy reading or an elegant or wild font to grab attention. Let's start with a couple of simple properties, the size and weight or thickness of text. Add this style attribute to any tag containing text. I'm going to choose the first paragraph tag, but you can try this on the H1 or H2 tags as well. Now to break down what's shown on this slide. Font size can be specified in pixels or percent. 8 pixels is small, while 16 pixels is fairly big. I specified 150%, which means I want the text to be 1.5 times taller than usual. Font weight can be lighter, normal, bold, or a number from 1 to 1,000, where 400 is normal and 700 is bold. Your computer may only be able to display one or a few different weights, but it will do its best to match what you specify. Let's add this code to see the result. I'm going to add the code to change my text and run it. You can make the text your own by changing the percentage for font size and the font weight name or number to your liking. Take some time to play around with the variety you can have here. As you can see, my first paragraph now is a little bit different than my second paragraph, and the font is a little bit more bold. All right, now to change the font choice itself. There are thousands of choices of fonts, some free, and some you may have to buy. The thing is, though, that you can't be sure everyone will have the right fonts on their computer, tablet, or phone. So you can either stick to a common choice, provide users with a copy of the font, or follow the instructions of an internet site providing free fonts, such as fonts.google.com. For this reason, CSS allows you to specify a family of choices, starting with your first choice and ending with one everyone is sure to have. I have listed 3 fonts. Nimbus Sans L is exactly the style I want for longer paragraphs. It's easy to read and not too fancy. Because its name has spaces in it, I have to put the code in quotes. I used single quotes so the computer doesn't get confused though, since we are already inside double quotes highlighted in green. Some brands of phones or computers don't have this font available though. So my second choice, separated with a comma, is Arial, because it is similar and almost always available. In the worst case, the final choice I've selected is Sans Serif, which every browser understands is a modern font with simple lines, without tails or flares at the end. A monospace font like Courier is a traditional choice for code because each letter takes up the same amount of space, like an old typewriter. This can be helpful for indenting code or entering data in columns. Let's jump over to our editor and give this a try. All right, I'm adding my chosen font family code into my paragraph style and going to see what it looks like. And there you have it. My font has changed slightly. Try out a few fonts on your page in different tags to see what you like. And when you're ready, let's talk about creating a themed look. CSS gives us a lot of choice, and we have only scratched the surface, but we can already create a lot of variety on our STEM page. However, most websites or apps try not to get too crazy with different styles because it can distract from the informational content. Most coders and designers try for a distinctive but consistent look. Consistent from page to page, but also consistent with the message, which might be serious for a business website or more fun for a kids game app. So let's add a little bit of consistency to our STEM page and focus on creating a look. The first step in developing a consistent look is to organize our CSS code. So far, we have put all of our CSS code in style attributes. As our page gets bigger, this gets messy. For this webinar, I haven't used the JavaScript from the last webinar because mixing just two languages together can get confusing fast. And mixing three languages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, is even more complicated. So it's usually best to separate them. We can take steps towards a solution and consistency by moving our CSS to an easy-to-find location between style, start, and end tags in the head section. In the example code on this slide, I have moved the CSS code to this new style section, deleting the style attribute in the tag. In the style section, I first specify a selector, which tells the computer which tag I'm talking about, the H1 tag in this case. Then, inside curly brackets, I put the same property value statements we used before. In this case, the text alignment center code that is highlighted. Now, anytime I use H1, it will automatically apply this alignment specification. Let's pop over to our editor and see how it works. So I'm going to just move around my code to organize it a bit better. And when I press run, what do you think will happen? That's right, you shouldn't see any change to the page. It's a trick. So far, all we have done is organize our code, not change any style. Now you might be thinking, why would I even need to worry about organizing my code? Well, the advantage of doing this isn't obvious yet because my page only has one H1 tag. But if I add another H1 heading, it will automatically have this style applied to it. So I don't have to waste time coding in and rewriting that style alignment code each time. Now that it is organized, every H1 heading will be centered throughout the STEM page. Phew! Thank goodness there are these types of shortcuts because coding is already tedious enough. So let's add some more style specifications for other sections of our document. Let's create a style for all the paragraph tags too. Since our STEM page has several paragraphs, with this organization shortcut, we can apply a style to all of them at once. Let's give this a go. So I'm going to go ahead and move my code from one location to the other. Try this code or your version of it in the style section. Remember to delete the style attributes in the paragraph tags as well. So now if everything worked, all of my paragraphs will be consistent with larger, bolder text and use the best choice of font available. So that style section really helped to provide some consistency for my page. But on the other hand, sometimes we want some of our paragraphs to be different. Maybe we want fine print or red warning message or something that will apply to only some paragraphs. so they can stand out. For this, we create a class, giving it a name we want, so I will call my class Warning. In the Style section code, the period before the name Warning tells the computer this is a name I made up and not a predefined tag type like H1 or P. Between curly brackets, I add properties and values as before, of color and red. Then, in the body section, in the second paragraph tag, or any paragraph or other tag you want, I add a class equals warning attribute, which makes that particular text red and stand out. Later, if I want to change the way warnings are displayed, it is simple to change them all in this one place. For example, I can change or add to the statement. Let's say I want to put a border around every warning. Going into my editor, let's see what this looks like. So I'm just going to add my code for my warning in the style section and the paragraph itself. Let's click run and see now that my second paragraph is colored in red. The class attribute has helped to add this style to my specific paragraph. So now we have come to the end of adding new code to our STEM topic page. And I want to take a moment to just wrap it all up and highlight some of the amazing things we have accomplished with text-based coding in this introduction series. This series has shown us a plethora of things we can do with text-based coding, from setting up the structure of our STEM topic page to adding animation and adding color styles. Now, as this was an introduction series, we only touched on a few of the basic coding skills in CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. But don't stop here. There is so much more that you can learn as a coder. I encourage you to continue to build your understanding and practice your coding skills. There are a bunch of resources available to continue on your learning journey through a variety of outlets, like from our company MindFuel to Google searches, etc. So keep at it. And thank you again for joining us today. I really hope you keep on your learning journey with coding and enjoyed learning about coding with me. Your STEM topic page should be looking awesome and have your personal style oozing out of it. Keep going with your STEM topic page and continue to build it out however you like. And look out for our future webinars on coding. If you liked this content and want to make sure more of it shows up, don't forget to click the like button and follow our pages. Talk to you later.